भारत का इतिहास की श्रृंखला में और इसकी तीसरी कड़ी में आज हम बात करेंगे भारत पाकिस्तान के युद्ध की। सबसे पहले मैं निवेदन करूंगा श्री आर एस डालमिया जी से कि वो दो शब्द कहें। श्री आर एस डालमिया जी।
जय हिंद दोस्तों। आज की कड़ी भारत के इतिहास में भारत ने जो 5 युद्ध लड़े थे उसकी तीसरी कड़ी है, जिसमें जनरल साहब 1965 में पाकिस्तान के साथ जो युद्ध हुआ था उसके बारे में विस्तार से बताएंगे। जनरल साहब को मैं सबसे पहले वाली कड़ी में मैं उनको इंट्रोड्यूस कर चुका हूं, पर मैं इतना जरूर बताना चाहूंगा कि अब हम हर रविवार शाम 4:30 बजे ये इतिहास की कड़ी को आगे बढ़ाएंगे। आगे जून के जो प्रोग्राम है वो थोड़े से बता देता हूं। अगला प्रोग्राम एक छात्रा ने रिक्वेस्ट किया था, शायद अप्रैल के महीने में, मेरे को याद नहीं है, कि ये जो जेएनयू में हुआ, अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी में हुआ और जामिया वगैरह में हुआ, जो ये शाहीन बाग वगैरह हुआ, इसके बारे में कुछ बताने के लिए रिक्वेस्ट किया था। अगली कड़ी में भारत के तोड़ने वाली शक्तियां, इसके बारे में विस्तार से बताया जाएगा। श्री जे भट्टाचार्य जी इसको बताएंगे। उसकी अगली 2 कड़ी जनरल साहब फिर से हमारे साथ जुड़ेंगे और चौथी कड़ी जो इनकी होगी वो 71 की लड़ाई, जिसमें बांग्लादेश लिबरेशन हुआ था, ईस्ट पाकिस्तान बांग्लादेश बना था और उसमें 2 फ्रंट्स पे लड़ाई हुई थी, पाकिस्तान के फ्रंट में और बांग्लादेश के फ्रंट में। और उसके बाद कारगिल की लड़ाई बताएंगे जनरल साहब। जून का जो आखिरी रविवार का जो किस्सा होगा वो पंजाब के गुरुओं का इतिहास, इसके बारे में बताएंगे ना। गुरु की जब हम बात करते हैं तो गुरु नानक जी से लेके गुरु गोविंद सिंह जी कैसे भक्ति प्रथा से शुरू हुआ और कैसे कैसे हमारे जो गुरु थे, पंजाब के जो गुरु थे, उन्होंने आखिरी में उनको सनातन धर्म की रक्षा के लिए, हिंदू की रक्षा के लिए उनको शस्त्र उठाना पड़ा। तो ये बड़ी रोचक कथा होगी, कैसे कैसे गुरुओं का इतिहास बढ़ा। तो ये प्रोफेसर जगबीर सिंह जी बताएंगे। मैं जनरल साहब को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि अपना आज का व्याख्यान विस्तार से बताएं। जनरल साहब।
गुड आफ्टरनून एवरीबॉडी एंड जय हिंद। Now today I'm going to expose you to what happened in 1965 Indo-Pak War. It has been very interesting episode that unfolded soon after 1962 Indo-China War. So it has got linkages with that, and which we will see how it is linked and how 1965 Indo-Pak War protest. Let's see the preamble part of it. You see, India was seen in a very poor light in the aftermath of 1962 war with China from the political military perspective. We had discussed all these matters during our last episode. And soon after death of Pandit Nehru in 1964, so it had created a political uncertainty in the country and an impression in Pakistan that India is not politically or militarily strong. Now, this was one perception what Pakistan was carrying, and at the back of their mind, the Kashmir narrative was always there. The president that time, Field Marshal Ayub Khan, was very well entrenched in power, and Pakistan has been getting a lot of liberal American arms assistance, which had provided them the latest aircrafts, battle tanks, and artillery guns. The foreign minister, Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he was a very aggressive person. And he had been visiting China time and again. And soon after 1962 war, the Pakistan had ceded the Saksham Valley to China in 1963. So the relations between China and Pakistan was very good. China was supporting Pakistan because Pakistan and China both, they had a common enemy, India. Moreover, there was a gap in military power balance in favor of Pakistan due to modern weaponry and equipment what US was providing to them. So Pakistan thought that it was an opportune time to revive her Kashmir narrative once again. They had to leave Kashmir in 1947-48, as we discussed last time. Now, once again, they started creating that narrative and they started planning towards this objective. Now, with the hindsight, if you look at it, it appeared that Pakistan's aim was to keep the war confined to J&K. That is only to the disputed area. But their leadership led the courage to take the battle beyond the ceasefire line, that is beyond the J&K. Because India, all said and done, even that time was reasonably strong when it came to Pakistan. Moreover, they had not forgotten that even in 1947-48, they had to run back finally. Now, with that backdrop, what is the Pak plan? A secret plan of armed infiltration was adopted. It was something similar to what they did in 1947. Now, this plan was in making for quite some time by the army and foreign office personalities, all those who were quite aggressive, and the war hawks. And as the battle unfolded, it was carried out in 3 stages. Stage 1 was Operation Desert Hawk. It was launched in 1965, April, and it was a limited offensive which was launched in Kutch region in Gujarat. And this primary aim of this operation was to test the political waters and to draw Indian forces away from Punjab, which was the main battlefront. Now look at their planning. Their main aim was in J&K. They had already appreciated that if they go into J&K, probably India will come to Punjab in the international border sector. So therefore, as per their scheme, they said, let's do something in Gujarat down south so that India will react and they will send their reserve formations to the southern side. Now, the second operation what they launched was Op Gibraltar. That was August 1965. An armed infiltration in Jammu and Kashmir on the lines of 1947 inclusion by irregular supported by the Pakistan Army. It was launched. Now, the objective was to seize power and declare independence of J&K. The idea was to tell the world that it was a local uprising, and for that they created a revolutionary council which was formed, and this council was required to appeal for the military assistance and recognition of Kashmir as an entity. And the third part which unfolded was Operation Grand Slam. It is a proper conventional operation launched on 1st September 1965. And this was done in Jammu area. And there's a place called Akhnur. If you look at the map of Kashmir, the southern Jammu is southernmost. It's slightly, say about 30 odd kilometer north is Akhnur. Now, Akhnur has got Chenab River and there is only one bridge over it. Their plan was to cut off this bridge so that all the forces which are deployed in Sundarbani, Nashera, Cham, Jodia sector, they will all get cut off. So these are 3 operations which had unfolded. And how they actually were executed on ground, what are the planning process, we will discuss little later. Now, the main miscalculation of Pakistan was to believe that Kashmiris would help the infiltrators and rise against the Indian government in J&K. But it did not happen. And in fact, it was the local population who informed army about Pak infiltration. And they assisted army in that. And the other miscalculation was to presume that India will not counterattack in Punjab due to her political and military weakness. You see, it is in the DNA of Pakistan, as you had seen in 47, that they are overambitious and they have got too much of self, what do you say, they think that their capabilities are quite high. They do not, they do not take into cognizance India is a big country and it has got lots of political and military depth in it. That time there was a gap between India and Pakistani military balance. Now I'll just touch three: tanks, RT, and air. This is what I'm talking about because these are three which are used for their reckoner for the offensive capabilities of a country. As far as tank was concerned, India has 720, Pakistan has 756. Miles same. But what is the difference? The difference was pattern tanks, 352 of them. Now these were the most modern American tanks which have been given to Pakistan. So they had an edge as far as armored formations are concerned. And in plain sector, Punjab and deserts, these areas, it is the tank, their capabilities is the one which provides an offensive capability. RT, that is fire support. India had 628 guns and Pakistan has 552 guns, but Pakistan had little edge because they had 172 heavy caliber guns, 155 millimeter and 7-inch guns, which were very good. As far as Air Force is concerned, India had 309 aircrafts and Pak had 152. These are against Pak front. India had that time around 700 odd. Now, out of this RT and air assets, almost five, a little closer to the half, they were deployed against Chinese front. So overall, the capability of Indian armed forces onto the Western front was a little lesser than Pakistan that time. Besides the better weapon and equipment what they got from America. Now let us see what happened in Kutch, Operation Desert Hawk. Now if you people have visited Gujarat, Rann is a remote salt plain of coastal Gujarat, which remains flooded with shallow salt water for nearly 6 months in a year. Only few small islands of dry land, which are known as deltas, they remain above the water. As for Pakistan, there was a dispute in the Rann of Kutch. There was a boundary dispute, and it began in 1957, which ended with India gaining control over the disputed area consequently much later. Now, this area provided the opportunity for Pakistan to try out various new weapons supplied by US and also to draw the Indian army away from the Punjab and JNK. There was a bigger plan for JNK and Pakistan minds, and they wanted to divert Indian leadership to concentrate down south. India, however, resisted the temptation of deploying her strike forces or other reserves from Punjab into this area. This is something good. India had done that. Now, Pakistan did get partial success in Rann of Kutch. They could catch on to 2-3 baits in that area. And they had a belief that Hindu army can't stand a strong and timely blow by Pakistan. That was the mindset. Thus, they planned to further pinch India, this time in the valley through Operation Gibraltar, which further snowballed into a full-fledged war, which they badly lost. Now, situation in Rann of Kutch. Very in brief. In January 1965, Pakistan started patrolling areas under Indian claim lines. They started including the patrol started coming in. Now, Pakistan in patrolling south of Kanjarkot. This is a small, very small village. They might have been going on even earlier than that, which we could not know. Because that area is so remote, there was no patrolling, and it was only Gujarat police posts which are there. And that also quite far spread out. Now, by this time, Indians had come to know about the regular patrols of Pakistan. And Pakistan had established posts in Kanjarkot, that is bang on the border, but towards Indian side. Now, India also started building an airstrip near close by so that in case there is any mischief by Pakistan, it should be possible for India to bring in the logistics and troops in that area. Now, in April 1965, the skirmishes between the two armies, they turned into small-scale battles. two Pakistani infantry brigades along with the armor, they attacked Run of Kutch in April 1965 at number of places. On 8th and 9th April, there was the Sadar post by CRPF company. It was attacked by a brigade group along with armor. But Pakistan could not capture it even after 15 hours of engagement. So they had to stop there. By 19th April, Pakistani troops in Run of Kutch, they had captured Diyar Bek, another small post bang on the border. And there were other few battles that were fought there. And finally, on 30th April, a ceasefire was called. In June 1965, after this, the Prime Minister Wilson of Britain, he persuaded both the countries to end the hostilities and set up a tribunal to resolve the dispute. Now, ultimately, of its original claim of 9,100 square kilometers, Pakistan was awarded only 10% of it, 910 square kilometers. Now, after this, in the aftermath of this operation, Indian government, they realized, look, we cannot leave these borders to the police forces, state police forces. We have to have a dedicated force. So they raised Border Security Force, which were raised on 1st December 1965 on the lines of army. Now let's talk about Operation Gibraltar. This is the infiltration ops into JNK. Now the headquarters for the Operation Gibraltar was set up in Muri under Major General Akhtar Hussain Malik. He was quite a flamboyant kind of general, and it is estimated there are about 30,000 men divided into 8 to 9 groups, named after the famous historical Muslim generals. Tariq Force for Kargil area, Qasim for Gurez area, Khalid Force for Titwal, Kilo Force for Uri, Salahuddin Force. It was Gulmarg, Srinagar, and Mandi. That is the central part of JNK. Nusrat Force for Mender, that is south of Pir Panjal. Ghaznavi for Rajouri, and Now, what was the Indian response? The Indian counteraction included capture of the launch pads from where they're being launched and the logistics bases across the LC. Now, once there was no support inside Kashmir, so these columns, they were on the run and they were all heading back to Pakistan. In northern side, the infiltrators were pushed back and the Kargil was occupied by 18 August. Now, Indian Army, they planned to capture Hajipir Pass, which is 8,652 feet. Now, if you look at the location of Hajipir, I'll show you a slide also on this. It is at the junction point of Kashmir Valley and Punch at the Pir Panjal. Now, from here, the infiltration can go into the Kashmir Valley and also Pir Punch sector both. And for capture of Hajipir, 68 and 93 brigades, they were given this task to attack it from north and south. It was a very difficult operation. And finally, one para, Major R.S. Dayal, he climbed up and from a hilltop, then he attacked downslope, and this attack was successful. And by 28th August, Hajipir Pass was captured by Indian Army. Major Dayal, who later on rose to rank of Army Commander, at this stage started a full-fledged war. This is 28th August. And Grand Slam, both are linked with each other. And after limited success in few places, even Operation Grand Slam also fizzled out. Because that is the time Indian Army had gone in for counterattack in Punjab. How this entire thing happened, that we'll discuss a little later. Now look at this slide. This is Hajipir Pass and this is the Hajipir Bunch. This is Uri in Kashmir Valley and this is Punch. South of Punch is the Rajouri and Srinagar is somewhere here. Now this is so strategically located from Haji Pir, you can infiltrate into Kashmir Valley or to the Punch or Rajouri and come down to Jammu area. So this is a very important area. That is the reason Indian Army decided to capture this. Now this is how, look at the kind of terrain. This is Haji Pir Pass. So high and such a difficult terrain. And this is one photograph once Haji Pir Pass was captured. This is a photograph where Indian tricolor for unburnt. Now let us see what happened in Operation Grand Slam. The Operation Grand Slam was designed as a twin of Operation Gibraltar, both of which were meant to jeopardize India's control of Kashmir and bring it to a negotiating table. But the catchword is without risking a general war across the international border. Field Marshal Ayub Khan, he didn't want the battle to spill over into the plain sector, because that's where the weakness was. The plan was drawn up by Pakistan Army sometime in May 1965, and that consisted of an attack on the vital Akhnur Bridge in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, this bridge was the only lifeline to the Punch Rajouri sector, but could also be used to threaten Jammu, because Jammu is hardly 30-35 kilometers from there. You have to simply roll down. And at the same, and from Jammu, the other road which is going to Srinagar, that is, which is going from Udhampur, then Banihal Pass, then into Srinagar Valley. That means if you capture Jammu, you would have cut off the logistic line of entire Indian Army in JL. So that was the master plan what they made. Had they succeeded, this probably would have been, the history would have been a little different. Now, the technical part is, at that time, the ceasefire line means when you are attacking through ceasefire line, it is a disputed area. This is what Pakistan wanted. It's okay. But moment you touch the international border, so in Akhnur, when this attack came, the Akhnur, that area near Palawala, those areas, there's a river called Manawar Tawi. So LC finishes there, the CFL finishes there, and thereafter international body starts. So that was a major issue in this operation. Now, in order to avoid the possibility of a general war, Pakistan needed to make operation appear to be a localized conflict in Kashmir. Now, that has been their concept all throughout. In 1947, they did the same thing. Gibraltar was on the same pattern. And even the conventional strike which they wanted it across the ceasefire line. On 24th August, General Akhtar Malik, that GOC 12 did, he started pressurizing the army headquarters for permission to launch the Operation Grand Slam. Now look at 24 August. This was the time of Gibraltar was fizzling out, and all these infiltrators, they were rushing back. Now this is the time General Akhtar Malik, who had planned Operation Grand Slam, he wanted to initiate it straight away. In his view, unless it was launched, it was only a matter of time before all the Gibraltar forces in Indian administered Kashmir would be captured or killed, and nothing would have been achieved from the whole operation. So therefore, it was a compulsion of Pakistan that time to launch conventional operations. On 28th August, after the fall of Haji Pir, now it is a major blow to Pakistan. Malik briefed Army Chief General Musa, and he said, look, terrain beyond Haji Pir is suitable for the Indian offensive. India can launch offensive. So therefore, we must go into offensive state. The President Ayub Khan, he was little hesitant in the initial stages. Finally, the Foreign Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he convinced him. And Bhutto was believed to have told President that, sir, either it is now or never, we must attack straight away. Finally, Field Marshal Ayub, he agreed to it. And he gave his instructions, take such action that will defreeze Kashmir problem, weaken Indian resolve, and bring her to the conference table without provoking a general war. Now there was a term of reference injected here to look, we want India to come to negotiating table, but we do not want a general all out. So what are the forces for Grand Slam? Headquartered 12 Infantry Division, which was at Kharia. It had 3 infantry brigades, 4 sector, which are 3 battalions plus, 10 infantry brigade, 102 infantry brigade, and 2 armored regiments. And from 4 corps, from the Lahore sector, they were given a lot of army RT assets. In that there were 3 medium regiments, 1 field regiment, and 2 heavy batteries of 155 and 8-inch. These are American equipment, what they had. And India had no match to these guns that time. And 1 div location battery. And they were also given RT Brigade X7 Infantry Division. Out of that, 2 field regiment and div local regiment. So a lot of firepower was given to them. There were a lot of 2 regiments of armored were given. And they had 3 infantry brigades that time. Now, what was our plan? Our plan was, it was to be executed in 3 phases. Phase 1, initial breakthrough by 2 infantry brigades with 2 tank regiments to capture the Cham salient east of Tavi Nala. I'll show you a slide little later. In phase 2, follow up the capture of Akhnur by 10 infantry brigades. And in phase 3, after capturing Akhnur, turn north along road Akhnur, Sundarbani, Naushera, and Rajouri, and link up with 25 brigade, which was deployed opposite Naushera, with the final objective of capturing Rajouri, which was lost by Pakistan in the first Kashmir War. Now, what do you see here? This is the up to this point. Somewhere, this is Manawar Tavi. Somewhere up to this point, somewhere here in the middle, up to this area, the hill section. This is Anti-Kerry Ridge. This is all hilly area. Here, after Palanwala downwards, it is a plain section. And what you see in blue here, it is Chenab. So it is a very small area, so 10 to 12 kilometers, which is available for armor thrust and park attack. So their plan was like this, that initial on 1st September, they are going to launch, capture Cham, go across, and at Manawar Tavi, the defenses were there, attack those defenses, and by first secure adequate area right up to Jodia in this area. And in phase 2, come and capture Akhnur and Akhnur Bridge. And thereafter, there's a road going from Akhnur to Sundarbani and then Naushera. Move along this road and thereafter link up with 25 Brigade of Pakistan. So that was the plan. Now at this time, what was the Indian forces? 191 Independent Infantry Brigade with 4 infantry battalions and a squadron of tanks of AMX-13. These tanks were smaller tanks when you compare it with Pakistani tanks that time. Now these infantry battalions, they were stretched thin all along the border, and AMX-13 tanks were no match to Pakistani pattern tanks. And as the armor was concerned, Pakistan and India, the ratio of armor was 6:1. Similarly, as far as RT was concerned, again the ratio was 6:1. So there was no match between Pak 12 div was given 3 infantry brigade, 2 armored regiments, as a huge means a lot of firepower given. Whereas India was concerned, there were no reserves close by in Akhnur sector. And moreover, only 1 bridge was there on Chenab. In case it was broken, that no reinforcement can come into this sector. So it was a very sensitive area. And that was the reason Pakistan chose this. Now, how this operation was executed? Pakistan Air Force, or early in the morning on 1st September, they came out to the forward Indian air bases. Indian Air Force also retaliated, and the Pak Army attacked in Cham sector that commenced at morning 5 o'clock on 1st September. Okay. Now, on the second day of the attack, GOC 12 infantry death, General Akhtar Hussain was changed. Now, how this entire thing happened, I'll give you each date how it happened. Now, 1st September attack came at 5 o'clock. Now, both the thrust, north and south, you see, this is northern thrust, 1 brigade and 1 armored regiment. Southern thrust, 1 brigade and 1 armored regiment. Now, both these thrusts, when they came up here, this southern thrust here, there is a place called Burjil here, right behind the defenses. They could come up here, but it was only by afternoon 3 o'clock they could capture it. Whereas the plan was, they will just roll through because defenses are very thin and go right up to Jhoria. So instead of bypassing this Burjil, this brigade here, 102 brigade, they insisted that Burjil must be captured. They did not bypass it. In the bargain, they lost the entire. And the 13th Cavalry, the leading armor in the northern thrust here, by last light after Cham, rolling down Cham, they could only reach here by the last light. That means the southern thrust got stuck up here, little ahead after crossing Manawar Tavi, and another thrust also got stuck up here. Now, this was not going as per the plan. Now, this was something which was not of liking by higher commanders in Pakistan. So, the army chief, General Musa, next day early in the morning, he flew down in a helicopter and he was annoyed with General Malik that your operation not gone as per the plan, and he replaced General Malik by General Yahya Khan, who was GOC 70. Now, when operation has been joined, troops are moving, that's the time they made this change. Now, this was a folly that day. Now, Yahya Khan, he didn't know that area. He had come straight away. Obviously, he took time. He carried out recce. Then in some time, around 4 o'clock, he called his order group. That means he called the subordinates to issue out his orders. No, so 2nd September was totally wasted. Now, in the meanwhile, in an army, 191 Brigade, now what happened then? Now, taking advantage of that, the 41 Mountain Brigade, which was 15 Corps Reserve, now that brigade was moved up. They were deployed at Jhoria and Taroti, this Jhoria area. This was a defensive line. They were deployed, 41 Brigade. And 191 Brigade, they were pulled back because there was nothing in Akhnur except small detachments. So 191 Brigade, they were brought to Akhnur. Now look at the defenses. Jhoria defenses have been reinforced. 41 Brigade has come in here. And 191, which was deployed here, they withdrew and they have come to Akhnur. And 65 GR and 3 Mahar. Now, both these battalions, there's the Kalidhar Ridge, which is dominating the road going from Akhnur towards Naushera. They were deployed in this area. So now you have 3 blobs of defense, Jhoria, Kalidhar, and Akhnur. Let's say what happened on 3rd September. Now, on 3rd September, Pakistan restarted their operation. 10 Brigade was asked to capture Jhoria by last light. Advance commenced at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. And they could contact the defenses by evening 5 o'clock. Now it was too late to complete the operation. So throughout the night, they were maneuvering, carrying out recce in that area. In the meanwhile, what did Indian Army do? 28th Brigade was also brought up and they were deployed. 28th Brigade came ahead of Akhnur. There's a Fatwal range. On this range, the 28th Brigade was deployed. Now, these people are only at Jhoria on 3rd evening. And by this time, by 4th morning, 41 Brigade is deployed in Jhoria, Karat area. Then 28th Brigade is at Fatwal. Akhnur is 191 Brigade. Now, the kind of defenses that we have captured. And on Kalidhar, there were 2 battalions which were deployed. On 4th September morning, the Pak attacked the Jhoria The attack which was supposed to go in the evening previous night, they attacked in the morning. Daytime attack. A lot of casualties were suffered. And 41 Mountain Brigade means with kind of overwhelming strength what Pakistan had. 41 Brigade, it was becoming difficult for them to hold on to defenses. So it was decided 41 Brigade would be withdrawn from here and put on some suitable ground. On 5th September, what happened? The leading elements of 13 Cavalry came in contact with 28 Brigade. Movement 41 Brigade elements moved out. So this was the Fatwal ranges, where 28 Brigade were deployed, and Fatwal is around 4 to 5 kilometers from Akhnur. The leading armor had already touched this on 5th. Now what happened on 5th? By this time, Indian Army had mobilized into Punjab sector. 11 Corps and 1 Corps of Indian Army of Western Command. Both of them, they were mobilized onto the Punjab sector opposite Lahore and Sialkot. Now, moment this kind of a mobilization of a command-sized force, 2 corps, that was seen by Pakistan. And now from Sialkot side, Sialkot is immediately south of Jammu, right in front of them. That means in case India launches attack into Sialkot sector and Lahore sector, the thrust line of Pakistan towards Akhnur, it will get threatened. So that is the time, on 6th September, Indian Army launched attack all along the international border. Now the fear of Field Marshal Ayub Khan that battle should not spill over to the international border, it happened. India took the initiative now at this stage, and they launched attack on 6th September. Pakistani 7th day, which was there in Akhnur sector under General Yahya Khan. They were told to look, now there is a threat in the Sialkot sector, that is Ravi and Chenab corridor. So they shifted the RT and the part of those troops here. So whatever gains Pakistan had made in Akhnur sector, they came to stand still there. And by this time, Indian Army was quite strong in Akhnur, Kalidhar, Sundarbani, Anti-Keri area. And that's where the Op Grand Slam came to a halt, and it became a failure. Now let us see Indian counterattack. The Indian counterattack, it was Operation Riddle. What is the general plan? Now I'll take your mind towards Punjab. I'll take you to Amritsar sector. Okay. And right above Amritsar sector is the Shakaradar Bulge, south of Jammu and Pathankot. So this is the area we are talking about. Now, in order to relieve the mounting pressure on Kashmir front, the Indian counterattack saw its forces crossing the international border and invading Pakistani province of Punjab. What are the intention? Intention was diverting Pakistan's military units in Kashmir, that is Akhnur, and up north, whatever little remnants of Gibraltar were there, where the Indian troops were at the severe disadvantage. The Western Army commander, General Harbaksh Singh, he launched a counterattack in Pakistani Punjab on 6th September. 11 Corps was to be launched in Lahore, and 1 Corps moved to Sialkot. Now this is Sialkot sector, and this is Lahore sector. Let's talk about Lahore sector. Now have a look at this map. This is Amritsar. This is Lahore. Correct? And this is Byas Bridge. This is River Byas. So this is an area which will little later we'll be talking about. This is River Byas and this is River Ravi. And across Ravi is Lahore and this side is Amritsar. Total distance between Amritsar and Lahore is around 40-45 kilometers. Okay. Now what are the plan? 11 Corps plan that 11 Corps will advance on 3 axes. Number 1, Amritsar to Lahore, 15 div. Khalra Barki to Lahore, that is southern side of Lahore, 7 div. And further south in Khemkaran sector, towards the Kasur, is going to be 4 div. Now, Pakistan's 10 and 11 divisions, which were deployed in the Lahore sector, north and south of Lahore, all along these canal systems. And they, moment this attack came, they were quite confused initially, but later on, they they started deploying their troops. Now, in 15 Div, what happened? Now, 15 Div contacted Ichogil Canal, which is 120 feet wide canal, and onto the western side, that is Lahore side, they had all bunkers on this canal. So that means this canal was prepared for defenses. At 11:30 hours, two companies of 3 Jat, they secured a crossing across the canal near Dogarai. It is a very famous battle. I'll talk about this battle little later. However, this foothold could not be exploited because the armor was supposed to come in and there was a delay in other reinforcement coming in. So it was decided to pull back 3 Jat from the Dogarai area. Now, sensing the direct threat to Lahore, Pakistan started reinforcing the defenses all on the outer periphery of Lahore and the Ichogil Canal. Now, the 7th day, it went on the southern side. This was 15 day direct access to Lahore, and this was 7 day from the southern side. It came up towards Lahore. Short of Lahore is Barki. Now, Barki was captured in this area. And 4 day, it was moved south. This is Kasur. This is a Pakistani town of Kasur. And 4 day task was in the Kasur side. Then let's talk about Battle of Dogarai, 3 Jat. Now, Battle of Dogarai took place in 2 parts. One was initially on the day we crossed the IB, that was on 6th. And the second was later on 22nd of September. I'll talk about both of them here so that then there is a continuity of this operation. Now, 3 Jat was initially ordered to breach the Ichogil Canal, which ran around 8 kilometers inside Pakistan after the IB. Western side, that the Lahore side, was lined with the Pakistani concrete boxes and had overlapping arcs of fire. That means it was very difficult to assault across this canal. So there is a water sheet, and across the water sheet is enemy weapon equipment deployed. The Dogarai township on the eastern bank of the canal near Granton Road was captured by 3 Jat by 1100 hours, and by 11:30 they had crossed it. The CO Lieutenant Colonel Haig, now he led his battalion of 550 men and defeated an enemy force which was almost double its size. By 1200 hours on 6 September, 3 Jat had captured Batapur and Atoki 1 localities. These are on the other side of the canal. However, the battalion had to pull back as the other units detailed to support them in offensive could not reach them in time. Now, the phase 2 of Dogarai, that was on 22nd. Now, 3 Jat waited for 2 weeks in defense of Satpura village in Pakistan before they were given orders to take Dogarai once again. Now, by this time, the Pakistan army had heavily fortified the town. And on night 21st September, during impending attack on Dogarai, the Sir Sahab Bahadur made 2 demands from his men. He said, "Ek bhi aadmi piche nahi hatega." That means not a single soul will turn back. And second, "Jinda ya murda Dogarai mein milna hai." That means dead or alive, we have to meet in Dogarai. Now, 3 Jat marched 8 kilometers and contacted Dogarai. Now, the Pakistani forces by this time, there are 2 infantry battalions supported by tank squadron in this area. Now, the CO, once again, he warned his men when there was a lot of fire on them. He said, "Even if you all run away, I shall continue to stand on the battlefield alone." So that was the kind of leadership and resolve Colonel Haig showed. The battalion engaged in the close quarter battle and eventually captured Dogarai. This was one of the toughest battles of Indian Army in the history of Indian Army. 3 Jat lost 86 troops, and Pakistani casualties were 300. So that was the kind of battle that was fought. And Colonel Haig was awarded Mahavir Chakra for this operation. So let's revert back. This is how the Ichogil Canal is. This is the Barki police station, the 7 Div, which had gone from the southern flank of Lahore. Now let us see what is happening in 4 Div down south in Kasur sector. Now 4 Div, if you remember my last presentation, this was the division which was there in Kameng sector. And this was the division which was, the lot of casualties had taken place in 4 Div. Now this Div was reorganizing in Shimla, and they only had 2 brigades by that time. And as far as weapon and equipment are concerned, they were still trying to make up those weapon equipment. So they were mobilized overnight. They had 62 brigade and 7 infantry brigade on their orbit. Orbit is order of battle. And they had total 6 battalions instead of 3 brigades, 9 to 10 battalions. They only this. And incidentally, all my friends, when I was brigadier, I commanded 62 brigade. Of course, it was in a peace station later on, not in the battle. I wish I could have commanded at that time. Now, soon after arrival, in night prior, that was on 5th, in Khemkaran sector, now this division was launched into operation into Kasur. The moment they crossed the IB, they were confronted by a Pakistani armored formation, presumed to be part of 6th Infantry. By this time, as per Indian Army intelligence, there was only 1 armored division in Pakistan, and which was 6th Armored Division. So we thought, whatever armor has confronted 4 Div, it is part of 6th Armored. Whereas it turned out to be a newly raised 1 Armored Div. A new division had come up, equipped with brand new pattern tanks and articles. Now it was a very big surprise, and we had not taken this additional force and such a strong force into consideration in our plans. Now that was a big gap here as far as forces were concerned. Now this armored Div, they counterattacked on 7th September. We had gone in on 6th. They counterattacked on 7th September. And then the time situation became very grim, and 4 Div had to withdraw. And 4 Div fell back now to a village called Asalutta, which is quite close to the IB. And along with this 4 Div was 2 independent armored brigades, which had 3 armored brigades. So that was the force for the defense. Now Khemkaran, which is around 5 kilometers from the IB. Now Khemkaran, the park of 1 armored Div, when we had crossed on 6th, instruction had already been issued to them by Pak higher echelon that there is going to be a counter-attack down south, because Indians are concentrating opposite Lahore. We'll go southern side of the Lahore in the Kasur sector. So when they were trying to cross, there is a Ruhi Nala, which they had not, as per they had not carried out recce, and they didn't know existence. They did not know about the existence of Ruhi Nala. So there was a bridge, and the bridge was hit by RT shell. So it took 24 hours to rebuild that bridge. So that was the time given to Indian forces to deploy in Asalutta and Khemkaran. Khemkaran was attacked with overwhelming armor and was captured by 8th September. And by this time, 4 Div was already preparing the defensive in Asalutta, which is a few kilometers behind Khemkaran. Now in Asalutta, let us talk about Battle of Asalutta. It is a very famous battle. 4 grenadiers, 9 Jammu and Kashmir rifles, 19 Gurkha rifles, and 18 jackets. They were deployed part of defenses in the front line. 2 independent armor brigade was also moved to Asalutta. And this entire force, they developed small strong points on the appreciated thrust lines. It was appreciated where all Pakistani tanks can come, their forces can come. So those areas were blocked. And luckily that time the sugar cane was there in the field, so that provided a lot of cover to these forces. Now another thing what Indian Army did, there are a lot of canals in this area. These canals are breached, and all these fields, they were flooded. Idea being that when the tanks will come and they will get into the slush, So it will be a problem for them to move in this direction. Now that was something came very handy later on when actually Pakistan attacked us. Now three cavalry, they had Centurion tanks. They formed a horseshoe on the western side of this defensive deployment in Asal Uttar. Idea was that armor, when they operate, they will go in on a flanking operation, try and bypass. So appreciating that they probably would bypass Asal Uttar and go behind, the three cavalry deployed in a horseshoe kind of a pattern in that area. Now Pakistani one armored div, they had two brigades, 4 and 5 armored brigades. They launched attack on Asal Uttar on 8 September, sometime in the evening. And when they attacked defenses, they got bogged down in the knee-deep, axle-deep mud, and it became very difficult for them to move around. Now, the infantry battalions which are deployed in defenses, so their action at 0200 hours, 9 September, that means the same night, 8th, they had armored attacked Asal Uttar, they got bogged down. On 9th night, now infantry and armor combined, they attacked 18 Raj defenses. The attack continued till late in the morning. It was abandoned initially, and once again they came back at night at 9 o'clock. Now this attack was also defeated by Rajdev. Now the crucial thing here was 4 grenadiers and 18 Rajdev, the way they were deployed. These two, Pakistan was keen to make a penetration through these areas so that they can get onto the rear side so as to capture more value territory in Indian side. So that whenever they'll be negotiation between both the countries, they'll have a higher point. So 18 Rajdev defeated their attacks. On 10th September, it was the main battle in this sector, Battle of Asal Uttar, wherein a strong force consisting of 2 armored regiments tried to bypass the Indian defenses and go behind towards the Bikivin, right behind Asal Uttar. Now, this thrust line, this is Khemkaran, this is IB, this is Khemkaran, which was captured on 8th. This is Asal Uttar here. Right behind is Bikivin. So this force of 2 regiments tried to bypass this and come behind Asal Uttar in this area. Now, 3rd Cav, this was checked by Indian 3 cavalry, which was in a horseshoe, and these 2 regiments, they could not proceed further. There was a mile 32 there. That was their objective. They must reach there, but they could not reach because of 3rd Cavalry operation. The 2nd Infantry Battalion, 4 grenadiers, which was there in defenses. Now, they were attacked by Pakistani forces, infantry, very heavy infantry, and along with pattern tanks. Now, CHM Abdul Hamid of Grenadiers, he was the RCL detachment commander. RCL gun is anti-tank gun. He destroyed 4 pattern tanks single-handedly, and finally he was shot by another tank, and he got killed. Now, for his daredevil acts, Abdul Hamid was awarded Paramveer Chakra in this battle. Now, on the side, what was happening? In that valley, the Pak tanks, they could be easily picked up by the Indian tanks and infantry anti-tank weapons. Now, looking at that state, that neither Pak tanks can move forward because of slush. So these people, they started abandoning their tanks, and they started running back into Pak. And that's where the cohesion of 1 armored div started getting integrated. Now, GOC 1 armored div, General Nasir Khan Ahmad, now he moved up to take charge of situation and once again tell his person, look, we have an objective and we must complete that. So when he came along with the Recce group, so that Recce group came under RT fire and small arm fire, and this entire group was killed. Even General Nasir Ahmad was also wounded. And their operational order of 1 armored div was captured. What was their plan? And what was their plan? The plan was to establish a foothold in Khemkaran, which they had already done, then push towards capture of bridge at Vyas River. Now, if they come to Vyas River, they could have cut off all the Indian troops in Punjab, thereby turning the defenses. And it would also amount to capture a substantial part of high-value Punjab territory. Now, have a look at it. This was Khemkaran. The plan was make a bridge at here, from here, bypass these defenses and come to the Vyas bridge. Now, this is the road Amritsar, Vyas going into Jalandhar. And this is Vyas River. Now, you can imagine in case they would have captured this entire area of Punjab, that could have been captured by Pakistan. Now, looking at this was very precarious situation even for India, because Fordive, they were constantly under attack and it was getting difficult to hold on. This is now night 10th, 11th. Now, looking at the strength and ferocity of Pak forces, Fordive, which did not have its full combat strength, it was even contemplated to withdraw 11 Corps to take up defenses on Vyas River. Because there was one thought, instead of fighting here, let's withdraw, deploy all along Vyas River and stop Pakistan. However, the army commander, General Harbakh Singh, he did not agree to it and he did not withdraw the forces. Now, that was something which changed the entire course of this battle. Hereafter, at Asal Uttar, the 4 infantry div and 2 Indian Armored brigades, they had formed in by this time. The 1 armored div of Pakistan that had got disintegrated, they left their tank and they have run away. So that's where we held on to the ground, and it changed the entire course of 1965. By 11 September, the offensive had come to the halt, and Pak troops were seen abandoning their tanks and running back to Pakistan. 97 tanks, including 72 tanks were lost by Pakistan. And out of these, 32 tanks were captured in mint condition. That means brand new tanks, which are fully functional, they were captured. Now these tanks are moved to Asal Uttar, onto a area, and the locals, they started calling it a Patton tank. There were a lot of photographs which were published in Indian newspapers, and that area is even today also known as Patton Nagar. Now, with that kind of supremacy, with this operation, the so-called supremacy of anti-tank weapons, now that was exposed. And Fordive had humbled 1 armored div, which was supposed to be the pride of Pakistan, despite all the equipment organizational limitations. So it was the spirit of commanders and the troops to execute the assigned task which made them victorious. So lesson learned here, as long as commanders are strong, the aim is clear, and troops, they hold on to the ground, then no enemy can move them from the defenses. So Fordive, they had 60 killed, 206 wounded, and 93 missing in this operation, in Battle of Asal. Falling persons, they were awarded Mahavir Chakra. The GOC, Fordive, Major General Gurbaksh Singh, Brigade Commander, Brigadier Tyagraj, Lieutenant Colonel Raghbir Singh of 18 Rajrif, Lieutenant Colonel Salim Chalab of 3 Cavalry, and Lieutenant Colonel A.S. Pedya, 9 Horse. 18 Rajrif. Incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, I'm from Rajrif. My first commanding officer, when I joined my platoon 14 Rajrif, he had fought in Battle of Asal Uttar, and he was awarded Veer Chakra, Lieutenant Colonel R.S. Sharma. Salute to him. Lieutenant Colonel A.S. Vedya of 9 Horse, if you remember, he rose to the rank of Indian Army Chief. These are photographs of Patton Nagar. This Havaldar Abdul Hamid, and this is the citation. He knocked out one enemy tank, then moved his RCL jeep, knocked out the second tank, then knocked out the third one, and the fourth one he got a hit, and he was martyred in this operation, and he was awarded Paramveer Chakra. Salute to him. Now let us see what is happening in Sialkot sector, one core operation. Now this is Jammu, just for orientation. This is Sialkot, and what you see here, this is the international boundary. And this bulge, what you see here, is known as Shakargarh bulge. This is Shakargarh. Now, one corps, they moved from here, went on the northern flank of the bulge, and their objective was Philora, Chavinda, and thereafter from the southern flank strike Sialkot. 26th Div, which was at Jammu, they were to cross the IB and surround Sialkot from here. 6th Div and one armored div, they were launched in the center, and 14th Div was to launch from this side. This is how this entire operation was launched. 26th Div onto Sialkot directly. 6th Infantry Division was to make a bridgehead for launch of armored div, first armored div. And 14th Div was to come along Degnala, along towards Pasrood area. Now, how the operation progressed. Now, this offensive had the potential to threaten the southern flank of Pak offensive under progress. Are already told, because of this thrust line, what Pakistan was doing in Aknoor sector, they had to recoil. Now, 6th Div had established the bridgehead for launch of one corps. The armored div had one armored div and 43 Laurent brigades. When they launched, they crossed the IB. 43 Laurent brigade, they got bogged down in a slushy area. So their attack was delayed a little. This advance, therefore, was very slow and cautious. The Battle of Philora and Chavinda. Now, these are two battles, tank to tank battles, very famous battles of this operation. Now, in this operation at Philora and Chavinda, overall, it was a bitter fight in the area which saw largest tank battle since World War II. More than 225 Indian and Pakistani tanks battled in an area just around 40 kilometers wide. There's such a small area and such a large chunk of these tanks they fought here. And when the ceasefire came about on 22nd September, the losses were very high on both the sides. 130 Pakistan tanks and 100 Indian tanks were destroyed, and 700 men were killed in this operation. The Battle of Philora and Chavinda, which was fought between 11 to 16 September. Now, area Chavinda was occupied by 2 regiments of Pakistani armored infantry. Plus, all these villages, they had infantry deployed, and they had converted all these villages into fortresses. On 11 September, the 17 horse under command of Lieutenant Colonel Tarapo, now he planned a surprise attack in Philora from the rear. The 17 horse came, and this is Philora. They want to attack from the rear. As the regiment was moving forward between Philora and Chavinda, it was counterattacked by enemy armor from Wazirial. Philora was attacked with one of his squadrons, supported by an infantry battalion, and 13 Pak tanks were destroyed in Philora battle. Consequently, the attacks to capture Wazir Ali, Jasaran, Uttar, and Tograndi, they were launched by 17 horse. Now, this is the hub between Philora and Chavinda. 13-14 September, 17 horse and 9 Gadwal, they attacked Wazir Ali. Then 17 horse and 9 Dogra, they captured Jasaran on 16 September. Now, this is the area that we are talking about. This is the area that they have talked about. They established a pivot here. Then attacks on Chivinda, they started coming here from this direction and from this direction. Approximately 60 Pakistani tanks were destroyed in this battle, suffering only 9 tank casualties of 17 horse. Yeah. It was one of the means very good tank-to-tank battle that Colonel Tarapur, under his command, 17 horses fought. And Colonel Tarapur was awarded Paramveer Chakra for his leadership and his personal courage. Is Colonel Tarapur, CO 17 horse. The subsequent ops, how now I'll take you back the entire front. Attacks and counterattacks, they continued for next 10 to 11 days. And areas were captured and recaptured by Pakistan and India both. And one of the main action was capture of Dograi in Lahore sector by 3 Jat, which we have already described. Then on the southern flank, Barki and few other villages, they were captured. Now Indian Army was all set to attack Lahore now. Lahore was surrounded in the north, that Dograi sector, and the south, Barki sector. So that was the stage. This is around 20th, 21st of September. Now at this stage, Pakistan was already on the knees. The one armored div had been decimated. Their Grand Slam was already, that had failed. And Lahore was poised for attack by Indian. And not only this, Pakistan had spent a lot of their ammunition. It is said that 80% of ammunition was spent by this time. Now they were left with no ammunition to take on India. So that was the stage. Now at this stage, Indian government was under pressure of international community for ceasefire. Now realizing that at this stage, it will attack Lahore, which is going to turn out to be into very heavy casualties. And at the end of the day, moment ceasefire is there, you have to return this township. And you cannot hold on to such a large township in any case. So it was decided not to initiate the intrusion into Lahore. That was on 21st November. Now the casualties overall, this is from the neutral sources. As far as India was concerned, we lost approximately 3,000 men, 150 to 190 tanks, 60 to 75 aircrafts, and 540 square kilometer of territory were lost, primarily in Kashmir. As far as Pakistan was concerned, there were 3,800 men. They were killed, 200 to 300 tanks were destroyed, and 20 aircrafts were destroyed. And over 1,840 square kilometer territory were lost in Sindh, Lahore, Sialkot, and Kashmir. Aftermath. A proposal of ceasefire was initiated by US, Russia combined. The Prime Minister of India, Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, in consultation with the Army Chief General J.N. Chaudhary, they agreed for the ceasefire. And the ceasefire came into effect on 22nd September, after 1.5 months of active military confrontation. I'll take your mind back. On 5th August, the infiltration started off Gibraltar, and it was 22nd September. Almost 1.5 months, means intense battle between both the countries. Unfortunately, once the ceasefire came, whatever areas were captured by each other, they were returned. Now in that, this included the Haji Pir Pass. Now Haji Pir is strategically very important, which probably should have been retained by us. Since it was returned back, because Haji Pir, with its location, it is centrally poised between Kashmir Valley and the Punch sector. Even now, the infiltration that takes place into Kashmir Valley, this is the area which is quite popular. And Pakistan uses this area. Now, what are the gains? Beside all our gains that we had in 1960 war, what it did, it proved the military credentials of Indian Armed Forces. which was under cloud post 1960 war with China. It was a major turning point as far as morale of Indian Army was concerned. Not only this, the political leadership and military leadership, both of them, they came out winner. And it facilitated restoring the confidence of leadership and the troops to take on any national security challenge in an effective manner. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this offensive had set the stage for a larger operation. And this time it was 1971 Indo-Pak War, which would cut Pakistan into two halves and create a nation called Bangladesh. And this time, whatever territory we captured, that is in Bangladesh, it was time and it was for keeps. That's where I come to an end to this presentation of mine of 1965 Ops. The President of India that time, His Excellency Radhakrishnan ji, he had visited the forward areas. Even the Prime Minister had visited the forward areas. And we all salute, kindly join me in saluting all the martyrs of 1965 operations. Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
And
It's time for question answer. Yes, sir.
Yeah, shoot your question.
Question, sir. Mr. Dalmia has asked that I thought Haji Pir Pass was belong to India. So how come this was left with Pakistan after Tashkent?
No, after the ceasefire, the areas which were captured by us and areas captured by them, they were returned.
Okay, so it was not
हाजीपीर पास किसका था सर? भारत का या पाकिस्तान का?
Pakistan, after ceasefire line, it is on the other side. It is on bang on ceasefire line. What we call it LC now.
अच्छा, ये LOC के पाकिस्तान की
हाँ जी,
तरफ?
हाँ जी, हाँ जी.
मृत्युंजय हैज ए क्वेश्चन.
तो सर मैं ये कह रहा था कि सर हम हमेशा ह्यूमैनिटेरियन एस्पेक्ट पे उनके सोल्जर्स सर छोड़ देते हैं, लेकिन सर वो हमारे कभी सर सोल्जर्स नहीं छोड़ते सर.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं है. जब भी सीज फायर जैसे होती है दोनों देशों के बीच में, जो भी करार होता है उसके हिसाब से होता है. हाँ, जैसा कि मीडिया के अंदर है, कुछ लोग, कुछ हमारे जो सोल्जर्स हैं, वो ये माना जाता है कि अभी भी पाकिस्तान की जेलों के अंदर है. तो इसके ऊपर एक प्रश्न चिन्ह है. ये बड़ी डेफिनेट चीज नहीं है. लेकिन जब भी सीज फायर होता है, जैसा आपने 71 में भी देखा होगा, उसके अंदर जो प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर होते हैं उनकी आदान प्रदान कर दिया जाता है. 1962 में चाइना ने जितने हमारे PW लिए थे उनको वापस कर दिया. 71 में हमने जो 93,000 से ज्यादा PW लिए थे उनको हमने वापस कर दिया.
थैंक यू सर.
Sir, there is a question from
आपके और ज्ञान के लिए एक जेनेवा कन्वेंशन है. अगर आप इंटरनेट पे जाएं तो उसको पढ़ें, तो उसके अंदर जो प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर होते हैं उनके किस प्रकार से ट्रीटमेंट किया जाता है, क्या क्या उनके रूल्स हैं, रेगुलेशन है, और जो जो देश जेनेवा कन्वेंशन को मानते हैं तो क्या PWs के अधिकार हैं, क्या क्या करना चाहिए, वो सारी चीज उसके अंदर है.
जी सर, धन्यवाद.
There is a question from Mr. Varun Arya. Any idea how exactly Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri died in Tashkent?
मैंने जब लाल बहादुर शास्त्री जी का जब एपिसोड किया था, उसमें मैंने एक्सप्लेन किया था कि जितने भी सर्कमस्टेंशियल एविडेंसेस हैं उसके हिसाब से इनकी मृत्यु जो है वो शक के हिसाब से हुई थी. कार्डियक अरेस्ट तो हुआ ही था, लेकिन क्यों हुआ था उसके मैंने बहुत सारे एग्जांपल्स दिए थे कि ये डायरेक्ट कार्डियक अरेस्ट नहीं होना चाहिए और भी इसके अंदर संदिग्ध सर्कमस्टांसेस होने चाहिए. तो ये मैंने काफी डिटेल में एक्सप्लेन किया था जब मैंने वो एपिसोड किया था. मैं वरुण आर्या जी को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि आप मेरे YouTube चैनल में जाके आप वो एपिसोड जरूर देखिए.
सर, समय को देखते हुए सर आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट मिस्टर डालमिया सर 2 शब्द कहें और आज की इस जूम को हम आज फिर उसके बाद में खत्म करेंगे सर.
धन्यवाद दीपक. मैं 65 की स्थिति को एज ए सिटीजन मैं थोड़ा सा एक्सप्लेन करना चाहूँगा लोगों के जानने के लिए। 65 में मैं 10वीं क्लास में पढ़ता था और उस समय सरकार की तरफ से एक हिदायत थी कि हो सकता है दिल्ली के ऊपर भी एयर रेड हो जाए, और उसकी वजह से सारे लोगों को ये हिदायत हुई थी, उन्होंने एक्सप्लेन किया था कि रात को जहां तक हो सके बत्ती मत जलाओ, घर में अंधेरा रखो, और जरूरी हो बत्ती जलाना तो सारे दरवाजे खिड़कियों को जहां पे शीशे हैं उनको काले कपड़े से या काले कागज से उनको कवर कर दो। और एयर रेड का सायरन मेरे को मालूम नहीं है, ऑफ कोर्स जनरल साहब को तो मालूम ही है, लेकिन और जितने लोग हैं उनको इतना मालूम है कि नहीं मालूम है, एयर रेड का सायरन अगर बजे तो तुरंत सारे घर की बत्तियां बंद कर देनी है और हम लोगों को सबको बाहर आ जाना है। और इस तरह की एक्सरसाइजेस स्कूल में भी कराई जाती थी टू इंश्योर कि हम लोग वो चीज समझें, जानें और इसको सीरियसली लें। और आप लोगों को जानकर सरप्राइज होगा कि दिल्ली में ये पूरे युद्ध के टाइम पे मेरे को ऐसा याद आता है कम से कम 3 बार एयर रेड सायरन बजा था, जब हम लोगों ने तुरंत सारी बत्तियां बंद कर दी थी और हम लोग तुरंत घर से बाहर आ गए थे। तो ये एक स्थिति थी कि दिल्ली भी अटैक होने की संभावना बन सकती थी, ऐसा सरकार के मन में विचारधारा थी। तो मैं जनरल साहब को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद दूंगा, आपने बहुत अच्छे से 65 के युद्ध को समझाया, बहुत डिटेल में उसको समझाया, और आगे के युद्ध मैंने सबको बता ही दिया है क्या स्थिति है। दोस्तों, हमारे देश का गर्व, ये हमारे शौर्य, जो हमारे सैनिक जिन्होंने लड़ाई लड़ी है, इनका जो शौर्य है, ये हमारे गर्व की बात है। और इसलिए मेरा देश मेरी जिम्मेदारी, मैं हर बार हमेशा ये बोलता हूँ, मेरा देश मेरी जिम्मेदारी, मेरी संस्कृति मेरा अभिमान, मेरी संस्कृति मेरा अभिमान। इस चीज को आप याद रखिएगा, कभी भी भूलिएगा नहीं। देश के प्रति केवल उन सैनिकों की जिम्मेदारी नहीं है, हम सब की जिम्मेदारी है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। अगले सेशन में अगले रविवार शाम 4:30 मुलाकात होगी।
थैंक यू सर।
जनरल साहब, आपका भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you.
थैंक यू सर।